Okay, very good morning to all of you, and let us get started with another very interesting topic, which is called as method of virtual work. So I'm sure you must be acquainted with work, the concepts of work, at least the basic concepts. Did you study virtual work before in your say 12th class or JE? Just are you aware of the concept of virtual work? Anyone would like to say? No. Okay. So okay, so I think it will be a new concept to start with. It's good to start this topic. So what we are going to do is we are going to study interconnected rigid bodies, but this time using virtual work. So we are on the last leg of statics, right? So we are kind of just winding up the statics, and this is the last topic on in statics. So right now things are still stationary or they are moving very slowly. So this is the scene as of now, that things are stationary, in static and static equilibrium. And by the end of this topic, we will study equilibrium in some more detail. What does it mean to be, in equilibrium? But to begin with, we still have interconnected rigid bodies, and let me. So what we want to do is we want to do the same thing that we have been doing so far. We want to evaluate or analyze static systems, and you will see that this method, although the concept of virtual work is applicable for a particle, it is applicable for a rigid body also, but the advantage that this method offers is in system of rigid bodies connected together. That is where you will see that this method is particularly beneficial, where you have something like machines and mechanisms, where you have interconnected rigid bodies moving together, or even if they are stationary, this method is going to be very advantageous. What we want to do is as follows. So given an input, this should be an, not and, that's a typo. Given an input, force and moment, we want to find the output force and moment so that the system is in equilibrium. Right? So there will be an input, there will be an output, and we want to calculate, given an input force or moment, what is an input out, what is the output force and moment, so that currently the system is in equilibrium, because that's what we are studying. Okay, so that's the what we want to do. Now, what are some of the advantages or advantages that this method offers? So one is that it gives you a quick and efficient solution, unlike what we have done in the previous case. So previously what we have seen is we draw free body diagrams, we do force balance, mass balance, and ultimately we'll be able to get the solution. But this will give you a more quick solution. Another important interesting advantage is we don't have to isolate bodies and draw free body diagram for each isolated bodies and so on. So we don't have to isolate things. We'll just consider system as a whole. We don't have to calculate the internal forces or support reactions. So in analyzing the system using Newton's laws and moment balance, we have to calculate first of all we have to calculate reactions, then we if required we have to calculate the internal forces, isolate bodies, right? So if you remember the analysis of frames and machines that we have done, that is the procedure that we typically adopt. But this method, we will not need to do all these things. And this method directly relates to cause and effect, right? So there is an input which is like the cause, and then the output is like an effect. So this method basically just talks about input and output. So you'll see the advantage of this method. Okay, so before I go to the method, let me introduce you to a problem, and let us see what this problem is. So for a given mechanism, what you can see on the right side of the screen, this kind of a mechanism is actually basically used for stone crushing machines. It is used for compressing machines, right? So if you have wooden blocks or some things you want to compress, or you want to break some, let's say you have a stone here, you want to break it. These are the kind of typical mechanisms which are used in these machines to do this job. Okay, so in terms of mechanics, if the load P acts at point or pin C, so if we press this point C with a load P downward, the question is we have to calculate the force exerted by block, exerted on the block by the slider at B. So we want to calculate what force interaction takes place between the slider and this block here, right? So that's the question. Now, before I go to virtual work, let me just let us try to solve this problem using the traditional method that we have learned so far. So if we have this body, which is this thing here, let us first of all isolate or let us draw the free body diagram, right? So if I consider this as a system, so I can have, so there will be some reactions here, right? There will be a normal force here. Then there will be a force, let's say Q here, and we are applying a force P here, right? So I'm neglecting friction, I'm neglecting the weight of individual links. So neglecting some of these things, this is the kind of free body diagram for the system that I can draw. And if I go a little bit inside it, so this is point A, this is point B, this is point C. Now, if I draw if I want to do a further analysis of this thing using the tradition, the method that we have learned before, first of all, we have to identify what are the two force members, right? So if we can identify what are two force members, solution will become very quick. So, of course, it would have been more interactive, but in the virtual thing, I'll directly do it instead of having a more interactive one. So in this body diagram, you can see if we neglect the force, then AC and BC are the two force members, right? So this BC will be a two force member. This is B and this is C. This is a two force member. And similarly, AC is also a two force member. And if this is a two force member, then we know that the forces will be along this line only, right? So if I assume that BC is in compression, then this will be the FBC that will act, compressing the member FBC. Now, when similarly I can do it for AC as well. And therefore, we know that the reaction is going to be along AC. Now, when we come to the member slider, which is this rectangular block here, now this is acted by FBC's opposite, which is, by Newton's third law, this is equal and opposite. And there is an external force Q, which we want to find out. And obviously, there will be a normal reaction. So you can see that this is going to be a three force member. So this will be a three force member. And and now we want to calculate the relation between input force P and the output force Q. That is the question. Now, if I see the geometry, here it is given as theta, right? So if this is theta, this is theta, similarly, this is theta, and this is theta. Okay. So if these are, theta, then I can say that FBC cos theta will be equal to the normal, and FBC sine theta will be equal to Q, right? So this angle is theta here. So I can say that FBC sine theta is equal to the force Q. And so from here I get what is FBC. And now FBC is equal to Q divided by sine of theta. And now I draw the equilibrium for pin C. So if I consider the pin C, and if I draw the free body diagram for pin C, so this is pin C, it is acted by a load P vertically downward. Now, if I see from FBC, which is acting in this direction, it will act equal and opposite in this direction. So this is FBC, and similarly FAC will act in this direction. And the angles, we can mark them. So this angle is theta, and also this angle is also theta. So from here I can say that FBC sine theta should be equal to FAC sine theta, and therefore I can say that FAC will be equal to FBC. That is one equation you can say from the horizontal component. From the vertical component, I can say that P should, let me use a dark ink. P should be equal to FBC cos theta times 2, right? So, and now here if I substitute FBC here, what I get is P is equal to 2Q cot theta, and I can say that Q is equal to P by 2 tan theta. So we have obtained the relation between the input and output using the normal procedure that we have seen before, right? So a few points to just consider here, that things are in static equilibrium, right? So we are applying a large force P, or we are applying some force P, and we are getting some value of Q, which is given by the expression P by 2 tan theta. Now, when we see the function tan theta, we should, we can just think about that what happens if theta is almost 90, or when theta is close to 90. We know that it's going to really go up, and therefore the value of Q is going to be very, very high, right? So when theta is close to 90, you can imagine that, the things is almost close to horizontal, and at that time, theoretically speaking, it can exert a very, very high, practically infinite force if this mathematical model is considered, right? With the present assumptions and so on, this equation says that for theta almost 90, this is going to be almost infinite. And that's why, you can see that this type of things are used for stone crushing and compacting systems, because those things you really need very, very high force, and that's the application of these things. Okay, so that's the more traditional approach that we have seen, and now let's go to virtual work. Now, before we go to virtual work, we'll just quickly review some of the basic concepts, which sure you must have studied before, but let's go it one by one. First concept is work of a force. So you know that if I have an object, and let's say we apply a force F at an angle, let us say alpha, and this block moves by a distance of, let us say, delta S, then we can say that the work done, or the work of the force, which I'll call by U, the work done is F dot with delta S, and it's better to put a vector here because these are vector quantities. So we have to take a dot product of force with displacement, and this I can say F cos alpha times delta S, right? So it is the horizontal component of force along the direction of displacement. I can write it in this way. Or I can also write this as F times delta S cos alpha. So if you see this, so this displacement, I can say that, okay, the block has moved something by this distance and something moved by this distance. And this distance, this is alpha, then this distance here is delta S cos alpha. And I can also say that the displacement in the direction of force, right? So either I can say force in direction of displacement or the displacement in the direction of force, but essentially it is a dot product of two quantities, right? So that thing we have to keep it in mind. So essentially, when I have a small infinitesimal displacement, so for infinitesimal displacement, I can write small work done is equal to F dot product with ds vector, right? So where ds is your infinitesimal displacement. So that is your basic work done by a force, and I'm sure you must be aware of this definition before. The next concept is work of a moment. So quite similar to quite parallel to the force. So if I have got a moment acting on an object, so if I have an object which rotates by an angle, so if I apply a moment m, and there is displacement of angular rotation of d theta, then I can say that du is equal to m times d theta. So this is the infinitesimal displacement, and this is the moment m, and this is the small amount of work done. And if I have a larger displacement, then I can integrate this equation to get the work done by the moment, work by a moment. Okay. Okay. Now next comes the new concept, which is the concept of virtual displacement. So when we say virtual, it is like it's a word which is very common nowadays, virtual, right? So virtual means basically it is means an imagined displacement, or it's an assumed displacement. But it is not real, right? So when we say virtual displacement, means we are in reality the displacement is not taking place, but we are assuming a very infinitesimal displacement in an object, right? So it's just an imaginary concept. We imagine the displacement to take place, right? Of course, it may appear a little hypothetical right now, but hopefully it will become clear in this lecture. Now, the virtual displacement we are going to represent by, we will, prefix or, have a pre-representation by delta. So we will say, let's say delta R or delta S or delta X or whatever. So the virtual displacements will be represented by this symbol delta before. So this will represent your infinitesimal virtual displacement. And just for the sake of comparison, if you consider the dr or ds that we have considered, this is a real displacement. This is again infinitesimal, but this is a real displacement. So so it's good to excuse me. So it is good to compare these two things here. So when I say dr or ds or dx, it is a real displacement that we are talking about. They are again infinitesimal, but these are real displacements. However, when we talk about delta or virtual things, we'll talk in terms of delta r or delta s. So these are assumed displacements; they are not real. However, one thing that is common is both are first order differentials. So both are first order differentials. Right? So these are all differential quantities. Okay. Now, let us try to understand what is this concept of principle of virtual work is, and then we will try to understand it by help of example. So the principle says that if a particle or a rigid body or a system of rigid bodies, which is in equilibrium under various forces, is given an arbitrary virtual displacement. So you can give any arbitrary displacement, but it has to be consistent with the constraints, comma, the virtual work done by the external forces during that displacement is 0. So there are a couple of points which I would like to highlight here, and they are, in separate color codes here. So firstly, this principle of virtual work can be applied to a particle, it can be applied to a rigid body, or it can be applied to a system of rigid bodies which are in equilibrium. However, the advantage of this method will be only when you have a system of rigid bodies, right? So there is, there is no advantage as such in particle or a rigid body, because we'll get the same equation as force balance equation. Now, when you have a system of rigid bodies which is in equilibrium under various forces, then we will assume or we will give an arbitrary virtual displacement. But we have to give it such that the system is in that we respect the constraints provided in the problem, right? So all of a sudden we cannot say that, okay, the system is going to fly in the air, right? So we have to give displacements which are consistent with constraints, and we will talk about it in the examples. So the main, after assuming the virtual displacements, what is the main conclusion? That is that the virtual work done by external forces during the displacement is 0. So in other words, if I write it mathematically, it is, I can say that the delta U. So when I say delta U, it is the virtual work. And the net virtual work of all external forces, this should be equal to 0. So that is the principle of virtual work written in a mathematical simple equation form. Okay. Now let us try to apply this concept of virtual work to the same problem that we have solved before. Okay. So the first thing is we don't have to draw free body diagram, right? The total free body diagram. So in fact, the free body diagram is replaced by a concept which is called as active force diagram. So what it means is that the forces, active forces, are the forces which will do some work. These are active forces. For example, normal reaction. Normal reaction is not going to do any work because it is always perpendicular to the displacement. Similarly, if we have internal forces, right? Let's say internal forces at pin C, or internal forces at some other joints, like in this case point C. It does equal and opposite work on two members, right? So it is again going to get cancelled. So normal forces, internal forces, so these kind of forces we don't show here because they are not required, because they don't do any work, right? So we are going to do calculation of things which will do work. Similarly, fixed support. So point A is a fixed support. So there will be reactions at point A, but the displacement of point A is going to be 0 because that is the constraint. we cannot assume a displacement that point A moves, right? So we will make it constrained, and therefore we can, the reaction forces at point A are also not going to do any work. So I can say that this diagram itself is an active force diagram, or to draw it in a little bit better way, I will. Okay, so this is the geometry, and I'll just show the forces which will do work. So there is a force P which will do a work, and there is a force Q which is going to do work, or not just, virtual work, right? So these are the only two forces that we will need to show here. Now, the system is in equilibrium, but we are saying that we will give a virtual displacement to the system. So we will assume that, let us say this, so let me have this angle as theta, and let's say that this moves little bit by delta theta. So this small angle I am assuming as a virtual displacement delta theta. So I give I give this small displacement to link AC. We give a virtual displacement delta theta, and point C has moved to the new point here, and this block has moved by some distance here, right? So this is point B, this is point C, and now you can see that green configuration is the new configuration. Again, it's new assumed configuration with the virtual displacements that we have given. So what the principle of virtual work says that the virtual work done by the force P plus the virtual work done by force Q so virtual work done by force P plus virtual work done by force Q, this should be equal to 0. So this is the principle of virtual work. Virtual work says that if this system is in equilibrium, and now if I give an arbitrary displacements or arbitrary displacement which is consistent with the system constraint. So system constraint is, one is that point A will be fixed, and the second constraint is the displacement of point B has to be horizontal. Point B cannot move up in the air, right? So with these constraints, I have given this displacement delta theta, virtual displacement, and now we can say that the virtual work done by the force P in moving point C and the virtual work done by force Q is the net virtual work is going to be 0. So that is the principle of virtual work in principle. And now how do we write this? How do I calculate this individual virtual work? Now let us assume the coordinate system here. So again, I have assumed theta here. This is x, this is y. And now if I write the coordinate of point C here. So let's say this length L, both length L is given to us L. So this is L cos theta is the vertical component of YC. So the y coordinate of point C is going to be L cos theta. From geometry, so principle of virtual work relies a lot upon geometry and geometrical relationships. So now here we say that the y coordinate is L cos theta, and therefore now if I say that the variation in YC or delta YC the vertical displacement of yc, and if I take a differential here, I can say that L is constant, so that is same. Cos theta's derivative is minus sine theta times the variation in theta, delta theta. And yeah, so that's delta yc. Now, from algebraic equation, if this is positive upward, then delta yc also we are assuming it upward, which is positive. And therefore, when I take the dot product, right, so this is again positive upward by the convention of yc, and therefore delta, this small amount of work done is P times B minus of delta yc, and this minus minus will become plus, so it will be PL sine theta times delta theta. Okay. Similarly, when I consider the work done, virtual work at point B, so we have to express the x coordinate of point B, and this is L sine theta times 2L sine theta is your x coordinate of point B, and therefore now I can say the virtual displacement delta xb in terms of virtual displacement theta is obtained by differentiating this. So this sign become cos theta times delta theta. So this is delta b, and now I can say that delta q is equal to, now q is in negative direction and delta xp is positive rightward, right? So this is positive in the right direction, and therefore again this is going to be we have to put a negative to calculate the this thing, so negative times, and this is cos theta times delta theta. Okay, so so what the principle of virtual work says, that this plus this should be equal to 0. The net virtual work should be equal to 0, and therefore I can write PL sine theta times delta theta minus q times 2L cos theta delta theta. This should be equal to 0, and from here again you will get the same equation, q is equal to P tan theta by 2. So you'll get the same equation. So that is the idea behind the virtual work. So we assume an arbitrary virtual displacement, and then we express all other virtual displacements in terms of that displacement and calculate the net virtual work done by the active forces or the forces which are going to do work, virtual work, and then the net summation is equal to 0. The net virtual work done is equal to 0. So that is the concept, and that from there you will get the same equation as obtained by force and moment balance. But you can see here that of course we were doing it for the first time, so it may appear a little bit more tedious or difficult to understand, but it is quite easy method, and it can be used for even much more complicated systems. So this is a very simple example that I started with, but even for more complicated systems, or where you have multiple rigid bodies and so on, we can just consider the input and output, because all the things inside, internal things, are not accounted in the work done, right? So internal forces and so on, we don't have to worry about it. So as a result, if you have a very long complicated system connected together, you can still use it to get the result quite efficiently. Okay, so let me see the time. Okay, so I think that's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Stop the recording.